Someone raises their voice. You raise yours. They interrupt you, so you interrupt them back. They say something unfair, so you say something worse. And 5 minutes later, neither of you even remembers what the argument was actually about. You're not fighting about the dishes anymore, or the email, or the comment they made in front of your friends. You're fighting to win, but here's the question almost nobody asks. What if the biggest mistake you're making in every argument is believing you have to win it? What if the moment you stop trying to prove yourself is the exact moment you become impossible to defeat? There's a man who never raises his voice to control a room. Batman doesn't shout people into silence. He watches, he listens, he waits, and he speaks only when his words will actually matter. That's not weakness, that's the most dangerous kind of control there is. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to stay calm when someone is trying to provoke you, how to stop taking the bait, how to use silence like a weapon instead of a hiding place, how to ask the one question that ends an argument before it even starts, and how to walk away from a fight without feeling like you lost anything at all. Because winning was never about the last word. Stop trying to win. Every argument changes the moment ego enters the room. The original goal was simple: solve the problem, but once your ego gets involved, the goal quietly shifts. It stops being, how do we fix this, and becomes, how do I prove I'm right? This is why people interrupt, why they over-explain, why they raise their voice for no logical reason, why they dig up something from 3 years ago that has nothing to do with tonight. None of that is strategy. That's a threatened ego trying to defend itself. Think about the last argument you had with someone close to you. Were you actually trying to understand them? Or were you building your next sentence while they were still talking? Here's the question that changes everything. Do I want to be right? Or do I want the situation to improve? Those are almost never the same thing. The mistake most people make is assuming that winning an argument means the other person admits defeat. But real winning looks completely different. It looks like walking away with your relationships intact, your energy protected, and the actual problem closer to being solved. Control your reaction first. Before you can communicate well, you have to control yourself. If someone provokes you, your first job isn't to defeat them. Your first job is to make sure they don't control you. Here's how that actually works. The moment you feel the heat rise in your chest, pause before you speak. Not for effect, not for drama, for your own nervous system. Take one slow breath through your nose. Relax your jaw, unclench whatever part of your body just tightened without you noticing. Then slow down your speech deliberately, even if it feels unnatural. A slower voice sounds like control. A rushed voice sounds like panic. Only after that pause do you decide whether a response is even necessary. Why does this work? Because your first emotional reaction is rarely your best thinking. It's your nervous system trying to protect you, not your mind trying to solve anything. Most arguments don't escalate because of the actual disagreement. They escalate because two people react to each other's reactions. Batman never rushes a decision in the middle of chaos. He observes first. Because the first 3 seconds of a conflict usually reveal more than the next 30 minutes of shouting. Common mistake: people confuse controlling their reaction with suppressing their emotions. That's not the goal. You're not pretending you feel nothing. You're simply refusing to let the feeling drive the car. Your challenge for the next 24 hours whenever someone annoys you: wait 3 full seconds before responding. Just 3. Watch how much changes. Listen for what they really mean. Most arguments happen on the surface, while the real issue is buried somewhere underneath. Someone says, "You never listen," but the real message might be, "I don't feel important to you." Someone says, "You don't care," but underneath that might be, "I feel ignored." If you only respond to the surface words, you'll argue about the wrong thing forever. So how do you find the real issue? You ask better questions. What specifically bothered you about this? What do you want me to understand right now? What outcome are you actually looking for? What's the real problem here, underneath all of this? These questions do something powerful. They force both people to slow down and think, instead of just reacting. Example, a coworker snaps at you over a small mistake in a report. On the surface, it looks like they're overreacting to nothing. But if you ask, is this about the report, or is something else going on? You might discover they're overwhelmed, underappreciated, or dealing with pressure that has nothing to do with you. That single question can dissolve an entire argument before it starts. Ask questions instead of attacking. Curiosity is one of the most underused tools in any disagreement. Instead of "you're wrong," ask, "what makes you think that?" Instead of "that's ridiculous," ask, "what evidence are we working with?" Instead of "you always do this," ask, "what happened this time, specifically?" Why does this work so well? Because attacks trigger defense, and defense triggers escalation, but questions trigger thinking. And it's very hard for two people to think clearly and shout at the same time. This is not manipulation, and it's not a trick to corner someone. The goal is not to trap the other person in their own words. The goal is genuine understanding and de-escalation. Picture this: your partner accuses you of not caring about something important to them. Your instinct is to defend yourself immediately. Instead, you ask, "What would it look like if I did care, in a way you could actually feel?" That single question often reveals the real request hiding behind the accusation. Common mistake: using questions sarcastically, as a weapon dressed up as curiosity. "Oh, so you think that's smart?" is not a real question. People can feel the difference instantly. Say less, mean more. When people feel misunderstood, their instinct is to add more words. But more words usually create more opportunities for disagreement, not less. Every extra sentence is another thing the other person can pick apart. This is why calm, short responses are often far more powerful than long explanations. "I disagree. That's not what happened. I understand your point. I'll think about it. That's not something I'm willing to do. I'm not continuing this conversation," while we're insulting each other. Notice something: none of these are passive or weak. They're short because they're certain. People who are unsure of themselves tend to over-explain. People who are grounded say what they mean, and then they stop talking. That man rarely explains himself twice, not because he's cold, but because repetition is often a sign of insecurity, not strength. Don't defend everything. This might be the single most important shift in this entire video. Not every accusation deserves a defense. If someone misunderstands you, you don't automatically owe them 20 minutes of explanation. Before defending yourself, ask, does this person actually need an explanation, or do I just want them to think well of me? Will explaining this actually change anything? Is this a genuine misunderstanding that can be solved with information? Or am I defending myself because my ego feels threatened, not because the truth is actually at risk? There's a real difference between healthy clarification and compulsive self-defense. Healthy clarification solves confusion. Compulsive self-defense is about protecting your image, even when it costs you your peace. Example, a stranger online misreads your comment and accuses you of something you didn't mean. You don't owe every stranger a courtroom-level defense. Sometimes the strongest response is simply not responding at all. Know when silence wins. Silence can prevent escalation, it can prevent unnecessary explanations, it can stop an emotional reaction before it becomes something you regret. But let's be completely clear, silence is not always the answer. If someone has a legitimate concern, communicate with them. If a boundary is being crossed, say so clearly. If a serious issue needs solving, silence will only make it worse. So when does silence actually win? Silence becomes powerful when continuing the conversation would only produce more chaos, with nothing gained. Example, someone is shouting, clearly not in a state to hear anything you say. In that moment, more words from you just add fuel. A calm pause, or a simple "we'll talk about this when we're both calmer," often does more than any argument could. Batman doesn't respond to every insult thrown at him in Gotham's streets, because responding to everything would mean everyone controls his attention. Your silence should be a decision, not an escape. That distinction changes everything. Set boundaries without starting a war. Boundaries are not attacks, they're information, delivered calmly. Here's what that sounds like in practice. When you speak to me like that, I won't continue this conversation. I understand you're angry, but I'm not going to continue while we're insulting each other. We can discuss the problem, but not through personal attacks. Notice the pattern: calm voice, clear words, no unnecessary explanation, and consistent follow-through. That last part matters more than people realize. A boundary without action is just a request, and requests can be ignored. If you say you'll leave the conversation and you don't, the boundary means nothing next time. Common mistake: people set boundaries in the heat of the moment, using an angry tone. That turns a boundary into a threat, and threats invite resistance. The calmer your voice, the more powerful your boundary actually becomes. Walk away without losing. Leaving a pointless argument is not weakness. Sometimes the strongest decision you can make is simply, I'm not doing this. You don't need the final word. You don't need to convince everyone in the room. You don't need to respond to every provocation sent your way. There's a difference between avoidance and deliberate disengagement. Avoidance runs from every uncomfortable conversation, even necessary ones. Deliberate disengagement chooses not to participate in something that has no real destination. One is fear. The other is discipline. And one more thing, seriously important if a situation ever becomes physically threatening or unsafe, walking away and getting appropriate help matters far more than proving any point. No argument is worth your safety, ever. Become impossible to drag into chaos. Here's the deeper truth. Underneath everything you've just learned, people can only pull you into unnecessary chaos if you allow their emotional state to determine yours. Think about who you used to be before someone provoked you. They said something, and you reacted instantly, without thinking. Now picture who you're becoming. Someone provokes you. You observe, you pause, you decide, you respond calmly, or you walk away deliberately. That shift, right there, is the entire transformation. That's the real victory this whole video has been building toward. Not defeating someone in conversation, but refusing to hand your peace over to anyone who wants to take it. Batman was never trying to win every confrontation in Gotham. He was trying to remain the one person chaos couldn't control. That's the whole philosophy, the framework. Pause, observe, ask, respond, set the boundary, or walk away. 6 words that can change how every future argument in your life unfolds, not because you avoid conflict forever, but because you finally decide when conflict is worth your energy, and when it isn't. Winning was never about making someone admit you were right. Sometimes winning is keeping your peace, solving the actual problem instead of destroying the person in front of you, protecting your boundaries without needing a war to defend them, and walking away without becoming someone you don't respect in the process. You don't need the last word. You need control over yourself. That's the one thing no one can take from you, unless you hand it over willingly. If you're done wasting your energy trying to prove yourself to people who were never actually listening, comment below. I don't need to argue, not because you're afraid of conflict, but because you finally understand that your peace was never something worth trading for the last word.